Hey everybody, Amanda Godwin here, Mandy from Mandy's Madhouse. I think I'm going to go by that from now on. It's fitting. And Mandy was my nickname when I was a little girl, so I'm not too far removed from that name. Let me say, if you have not watched my first video that's entitled Open Letter to Orange County, North Carolina Board of Commissioners, you need to watch that first or this one's not going to make any sense. So go do that, or not. Just a warning, this one's not going to make any sense if you don't watch the first one, because this is definitely a continuation. Back from the Orange County Board of Commissioners meeting regarding the development that they want to rezone this one parcel that's right now zoned as residential, and turn it into charter schools and baseball fields and tennis club. And you see, I'm on my back deck, and it's nighttime. Obviously, it's dark. It's fairly quiet. I can hear the highway, but it's not that bad. But what they're proposing is about, several hundred feet that way, right behind me. Even before the meeting, those of us who are opposed, there was like an unofficial memo went out for us to wear red. This is the shirt I wore to signify, no, stop, don't do this. Those who were for the proposal were organized enough to have these made signs. They were just oval signs that said yes, and they were on like kind of, I would describe it as a large popsicle stick, big. So 2 things I need to amend from my first video since going to this meeting. The first one is Earl McGee, who is the commissioner I was complaining about in the first video, who was on payroll of the developer. He voluntarily opted out of the vote, so he will not be voting on this proposal, which is the right thing to do. I'm glad he did that. The other amendment is, in the first video I said that the developer did not have buyers or for the sports fields, the baseball fields or the tennis clubs. That was true at the time I got the information, but he has since gotten buyers. So there are people lined up to build baseball field, 8 baseball fields, again, a few hundred feet right behind me, and a bunch of tennis courts. So the meeting was quite long. When we first walked in, they asked if you wanted to speak, and if you did, they wanted you to sign your name on a piece of paper. They would call you up in order that you signed on that piece of paper. I did not sign the piece of paper. At the time, I didn't think I needed to say anything. After the meeting went through and everybody who signed up spoke, they opened it up for other people. And since that commissioner had opted out of the vote, I felt a little bit bad about my first video because I was a little disrespectful to him. And so I felt like I had to apologize. It's just the way I was raised. So I needed to look him in the face and apologize. And so after they got finished with everybody who had signed up and opened it up, I did step up to apologize to this man. And I did that. And I told him, because I had emailed the link to my first video to all the commissioners except him. And I told him, I said, I just didn't respect you enough to do it. I just didn't respect you enough to send you my video. And now that I'm away from it, I'm like, did I really need to say that? That was, I don't know. I just keep getting worse. I'm an idiot. But I did apologize. And I hope it came out as an apology. I was extremely nervous. And I told them, my voice is going to shake because public speaking is not my forte. So I hope it came out as an appropriate apology, because I didn't mean it as an apology. So I got through it. But while I was up there apologizing to this man and I had the room, I said, I don't really have comments, but there's something I want to do. I want everybody who has those yes flags to raise those flags if you live on Lanny Drive, Lori Drive, J Circle, Adams Place, Kennedy, Washington, or Jefferson. raise your flags raise your yes flags if you live on any of those streets. And nobody raised their flag. I knew they wouldn't. Okay, I knew they wouldn't. Everybody who had a flag are people who want these fields, and what they're saying is, we want these fields, and but we want you to suffer for it. You know, they're not making any sacrifices. They're not making any sacrifices to their lifestyle or their safety or their peace and quiet and dark. They're not making any sacrifices. We are, those of us who live here. So it's real easy to sit there and wave a yes flag when all you do, this goes their way, and they build 8 baseball fields. They get to come play their game, pack up their kids, and go home. Where I'm the one stuck trying to get my 9-year-old to bed at 9 o'clock, which is her bedtime on school nights, with the sound of a baseball game. Let's play the baseball game sound. So that's what I'm going to be able, to hear clearly while I'm trying to get my child to bed. Oh, that lawyer. He did not make a lot of sense. So he used a lot of words and didn't say a whole lot. And then one thing he said, well, there was 2 things he said that really confused me. One thing he talked about a bridge, and then he said 2 miles away. The I-85 overpass is not 2 miles away. It's 900 feet away from the center of the field. It's about 400 feet away from the edge of the field. So that bridge, which is a major concern, is not 2 miles away. I don't know what bridge he's talking about that's 2 miles away. There is a bridge 2 miles away that goes over the Eno River, but that's like a non-issue. Why would you even bring that up? I don't understand what he was trying to say with that. The other thing he said that confused me, and again, it doesn't make a difference other than to demonstrate that either he's misinformed, and I'm not sure how much misinformed he is, or I'm not going to say it, but and I'll admit it just to cover my butt that I could have misunderstood, but somebody else may have heard the same thing. I thought I heard him say that this developer came into Lawrence Road Partners after the initial rezoning request was made, to imply that this guy didn't have anything to do with it. But I have the articles of organization for Lawrence Road Partners that was signed by James Parker on August 31st of 2021. So unless they're implying that the initial proposal was made 2 years ago, James Parker was definitely with Lawrence Road Partners. So I don't know what this lawyer was trying to imply or trying to say, or was misinformed with some of his facts. There were a lot of just useless blanket statements said, not just at this meeting, but now I've been hearing from other people. This is the only meeting I've been to on all this. The planning meeting and whatever else went on during tax season, where I disappear off the face of the planet just because of my job. And so I didn't make those. This was my only meeting, but I've since heard from other people about some things that were said in the other meetings that are just, a lot of people say they use a lot of words and don't say a whole lot. And you know what I'll do? I'm tired. It's way past my bedtime. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna regroup my thoughts and figure something else, and I will add to this. So I'll be back. Okay, so I wanted to tell about a couple of interesting conversations I had this week. One of them was with a friend of mine who is a retired economic geologist. Now, his specialty, he worked in Alaska. I was showing him the plans of this development, and we got in my car and drove around, and I explained the well situation for the area residents, and his bottom line was, this is a bad idea. The second conversation I had, it originated because I remembered a conversation I had with my father, who died in 2018, about that bridge. I keep harping on that bridge, the I-85 overpass. When the development for Wingate started, and it got pretty expansive, and then the development across the street, it's on Ryan Road, I'm not sure the name of the development, but he was still alive at the time, and he had mentioned, we were just in, just conversation, and he had mentioned how they needed to stop all this development on Lawrence Road because that bridge wouldn't handle it. And it got me thinking, I was like, well, let me see if I can contact somebody, my dad knew. And so I did. I found another retired supervisor from the North Carolina DOT and talked to him, and I was doing hypotheticals. I was like, hypothetically, he knew this area. He's not from here, but he knew this area. He used to come visit my dad all the time, who is, well, when he was alive, he was my next door neighbor. My mother is still my next door neighbor. And so this gentleman knew the area, but didn't know about this situation, about this development being built in the field. And so he also said these roads are, not suited for that. And that was his bottom line also. Then he asked me, well, who is this builder? And I told him it was Jim Parker and Summit Engineers. And he started laughing. He said, please don't use my name. I'm like, okay, I won't, but I'm just curious as to why. He said, well, they're all former DOT. I know them. And I don't want to burn my bridges in case I have to go back to work, because he said that he had been offered a job, and he turned it down at the time because he was newly retired and he wanted to, do that relaxing retirement thing. He said, I don't want to burn my bridges in case I need to go back to work, so don't use my name. And fine, I won't use your name. But I don't think that takes anything away from my credibility when this is from a developer and his cronies who, first they said there would be no lights at these baseball fields. And then at the meeting I was at, they definitely were talking about, yes, there will be lights at these 8 baseball fields. First, he wanted water and sewer. And then when the town pushed back and said, we don't want to give you water and sewer, he said, oh, okay, well, the school will just run on septic and, well. And now that that's impossible, he's back to wanting sewer run out here. So he keeps flip-flopping. He keeps changing his story. And so I don't feel like that makes me any less credible because I have retired specialists and somebody who doesn't want to be identified, and then my father who is dead and can't verify. And also you might be asking, well, who is your dad? Why would he have any knowledge about this bridge? Well, let me introduce you to my dad, who, again, I'm going to say this, he had concerns about this bridge long before this development was ever in the works. So here's his 25-year service award with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Here's a certificate of service for 30 years. His resolution and appreciation when he retired. Here's his state of North Carolina certificate of retirement. Advanced supervisory course 2, method improvements, supervisory development training, supervisory management training, interviewer supervisory certificate. My dad was a explosive specialist. There's this. Well, how about this? How about structure inspection? Got a certificate for structure inspection. How about he was a certified concrete batcher? Or how about that all this time he was working for the DOT, he was working with bridge maintenance. There's another certificate of training for bridge maintenance. So maybe my dad knew a little bit of something about bridges. And like I said, he expressed concerns decades ago. He's passed. He can't, go in front of anybody and be contradictory to whoever the cronies are for the plus side. But, this is what I got. But I don't think it makes me any less credible considering the flip-flopping stories that it sits for talking about traffic. And then here's some photos that another neighbor had emailed me from of traffic backup. And it's common. That's what I'm trying to say. It's common for all this. Before any, 2 schools, 8 baseball fields, and a bunch of tennis courts come to this area. This is the traffic we're dealing with. Also, here's a Facebook post that I made months ago And it's not necessarily directly on about this area, but it does show the correlation of the traffic backup on 85 and the traffic backup on 70. They run parallel. When 85 gets backed up, 70 gets backed up. Lawrence Road is part of the connecting route that people use to go from one to the other to try to bypass traffic backup. And I wanted to address some of the statements I've heard from people who are for this development. And for the video, I'm just going to call them the yes side, where the opposition is the no side, as in no, don't rezone, or yes, do rezone. Here's some from the yes side. One guy got up and talked about, so the water rates go up, so what? And I'm thinking, okay, that's, really public way of announcing how you don't give a damn about 37.9 million Americans, or nearly 18,000 Orange County residents who live in poverty. Yeah, it matters. They care. That's a very interesting way of saying, I don't care about 18,000 residents. How about these 18,000 residents show up at your door and tell you how they think about water rates going up? And there was one gentleman who made the statement, change is inevitable. And of course, my imagination, what I heard is, change is inevitable for you. Probably not his house, but it is inevitable for me. Now, whenever you purchase a house, it's an investment, and most people do research. And I rented for a few years, and I actually had the option to purchase in, I think, 2007. But I did that with the understanding that field was residential, so I knew eventually, just common sense, eventually, yes, that place would be developed as residential. You're wanting to change the law that was set in place when I made my purchase. I'm betting the gentleman who made that statement is not having the same situation happen to him. So it's easy to say, change is inevitable, get over it. He didn't say that, I'm adding that. But it's easy to say that when it's not your property that's going to be changed. So one lady got up and said, this developer has done a lot of good, and she put the emphasis on this developer. Stalin wrote poetry. Saddam Hussein mandated free health care for his country. Elvis performed gospel while high on drugs. Charles Manson was a good singer. What's your point, other than to validate my point from the first video, that there's some bias and favoritism going on for this developer? Okay, one guy got up and said something like, these people are all doom and gloom. This is not going to be urbanized like Chicago. And I'm paraphrasing. I used to work for a northern company. Our headquarters were in Wall, New Jersey. I had to go there often for training or work. I've had to work in New York City. I've been through, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Dallas, Houston. I know what urban is. I know what metropolitan is. I lived in Charlotte for several years. And by the way, let me get to that. I lived about 1.5 miles away from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. I could hear that speedway from my house. So if you're trying to tell me that 8 baseball fields are not going to make that much difference as far as noise pollution, and it's a couple of 100 feet away, I'm assuming you have some oceanfront property in Arizona you want to show me the deed for and see if I want to buy it. I'm buying neither, okay? So for this gentleman, what I would like to do is also go to his property and get it spot zoned for something other than residential. And I want to build an amphitheater. This is Amanda's perfect world. I want to build an amphitheater, and then I want to invite all my favorite bands to come play. That would be awesome. So we're talking about, amphitheater with Disturbed and Five Finger Death Punch and Skillet. And hey, while we're at it, you know what? Axl Rose and Slash are friends again, so we can get Guns N' Roses. And then, hey, how about some AC/DC? Or, oh, come on, 6 a.m.? Bring me some Nikki Sixx. He's inspirational to me. I've read his book. Come on, let's bring it on. Please, Can I rezone 2,000 feet away from your house and get this amphitheater and invite all these people to come play their music? And you try to get your kid to bed at the same time. So anyway, Amanda's perfect world being sarcastic. So this lady from the Chamber of Commerce at the planning board meeting made the statement that this development would uplift the surrounding struggling communities. And that's how it was sent to me. I wasn't at that meeting. Somebody sent me that statement that was made. What that is called is a blanket statement. It's really good for an opening line in a collegiate essay or some kind of term paper, but that's all it's good for. You gave no elaboration as to how the struggling communities would be uplifted. There's no supporting evidence, no backup, nothing. So it's like she wrote this blanket statement at the top of the page, left the page blank, and handed it in to a professor or her teacher. And ma'am, you failed the essay, okay? You got to repeat the class. Not enough. And then this one was kind of painful for me because some of the people holding up their little yes signs, I recognize. I don't take it personally, but I don't like it. Tell you why. And one of the things, the statements that kept going was, we need to do this for the kids. We need to do this for the kids. And, you know, all those who say that, I want you to come in close. Listen real good. Okay, come in close. Sit down, okay? This is going to be shocking. I don't want anybody to fall over. When they hear this, brace yourself. We have kids too. Oh, here's some actual kids who actually live near the spot where they want to build the fields. Do you like sports? Yes. So, do you want sports fields right behind us?
No.
All right. And what are your answers to this development?
None.
Everybody kept talking about keeping kids active, and I'm number one. If I can fit it in here, let me show you how active I keep my kid. And then myself, you know, I took gymnastics at Faulkner's when it was around. When I was a kid, I took taekwondo in college and aerobics and did weightlifting. And when I got older, I got into, you know, camping and hiking and scuba diving. Yeah, I agree. We do all need to keep active, and as parents, we need to have the opportunities and the facilities to keep our kids active. And one thing I do know from my personal example, at 9 years old, my child has been playing soccer for more than half her life. And then there's other activities. She's ice skating. She started horseback riding. She's a swimmer. How could you not be with a mom who scuba dives? But in all of that, I can honestly say I have never, ever actively complained to have fellow residents' lives so brutally disrupted for my kids' recreation. And I can in good conscience say that. You are actively campaigning for my life to be just disseminated. Like I said, we got a springtime going on. These are a lot of trees. When these trees are bare, I can see that field. I can see Lawrence Road. I can see traffic on Lawrence Road when the leaves are not on the trees. This affects me directly, negatively. Let's talk about the lights and the noise. It's another thing. My child likes toads, much to my horror. She loves them, but toads need dark and quiet to emerge, and they do all their croaking and stuff when it's dark and quiet. And we're losing that. We're going to lose our quiet. So you can't tell me that the lights and the noise from baseball fields a few hundred feet away is not going to make a hostile entrance into my property where my child loves to commune with her amphibian friends. I mean, this is what makes her happy. Baseball is what makes your kid happy, but you want me to give up what makes my kid happy for what your kid likes. And I'm gonna make fun of you for being so selfish. This is where we live. that's where you want to play. That's where you want to go have your fun, do your recreation, pack up, go home. If your kid goes to bed early, they get to go to bed early. If they're teenagers still running games all night, late to the night, it's going to go beyond my child's bedtime, and I still have to try to get her to bed so she can be healthy. That's another thing. Sleep is important. I want my child healthy too. So I just want everybody with those yes flags, residents, the little cronies, the people who are working with the developer, I get that. But the other residents, just take into consideration, we're here. We're contributing members to society. At least I like to think I am.